This isn't just another headline. This is a direct warning about Marlon Humphrey's future in Baltimore. Because what happened in the draft, and more importantly, what didn't happen, completely changes how you should be looking at his situation right now. And to me, there's something here a lot of people still haven't picked up on. You've got decisions being pushed down the road, trust being tested, and a situation that could flip at any moment. And when you combine his recent performance, that massive contract, and the lack of real competition, this starts to feel way more serious than it looks on the surface. Stay with me because every piece of this breaks down exactly what could be coming next for Humphrey. I'm going to be real with you. This felt like the perfect setup for a major shift. The draft was the ideal moment for the Ravens to bring in a high-level corner. Someone big, physical, ready to start right away. The kind of player who could have realistically put Marlon Humphrey on notice heading into 2026. And this wasn't just a guess. The team's own history pointed in that direction. Baltimore has always valued taking corners early. And when you factor in where Humphrey is right now, declining performance, injuries stacking up, and real questions about his role, it made all the sense in the world. Honestly, I expected them to make that move, but they didn't, and that changes everything. With no serious name coming in to compete for snaps, Humphrey's spot on the depth chart stays pretty much untouched. No real threat, no immediate pressure. To me, that's almost like a reset for him in Baltimore, because the risk of losing his role right now just isn't there. But here's the thing. That decision doesn't solve the problem. It just delays it. Because if no one's coming in to push him, then the conversation shifts to something else. How much does his recent performance still justify that level of trust? Now this is where things start to get serious. There's a big difference between sticking with a player because of who he's been, and sticking with him when what he's putting on the field right now is raising red flags. And to me, Humphrey is firmly in that second category. The report doesn't sugarcoat it. He was arguably the most exploited corner in the NFL last season. That's not minor regression. That's a player offenses actively targeted over and over again. And when you look at the numbers, it backs it up. He ranked near the bottom in multiple key metrics among corners with a high number of targets. And what makes it worse, in my opinion, is that this isn't new. This has been building for a few seasons now. Declining play, injuries, and a role that never fully adjusted, especially with the long-standing idea that he should have moved to the slot full-time. This isn't a one-year issue, it's a pattern. So when I look back at what the Ravens did in the draft, it's impossible not to connect the dots. If the performance is trending down, why not bring in real competition? And that leads directly into the next piece of this. Because there's a reason Humphrey still feels pretty secure right now. This is the part, to me, that explains everything about the current situation. There's no one on this roster truly threatening Humphrey's spot. And that completely changes the internal dynamic at the position. The text even points it out with guys like TJ Tampa, who hasn't flashed much yet. So yes, they've tried developing younger players, but none of them have shown enough to be viewed as a legitimate starting option. And when there's no internal pressure, the veteran naturally holds his ground. On top of that, the only addition in the draft was Chandler Rivers in the 5th round. And let's be honest, players taken there aren't expected to step in right away as starting outside corners. The report even frames him more as a rotational piece with slot potential, which doesn't solve the Humphrey situation at all. To me, this creates a comfort zone that might be a little too safe. Even with declining play and growing criticism, he still has a clear path on the depth chart. That explains the Ravens' approach so far. But that security on the field starts to clash with a much bigger issue off the field. All right, we're already past the halfway point of this video. But before we keep going, I noticed you haven't hit the like button yet. And that really matters, because it helps YouTube keep showing Ravens content like this to you. So if you enjoy staying updated with the latest Ravens news, analysis, and everything happening around the team, go ahead and hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow, and it's completely free. I appreciate it. Now this is where it gets uncomfortable, because this isn't just about performance anymore. It's about money. And to me, this is where Humphrey's situation becomes really hard to justify. The numbers speak for themselves. Nearly $20 million in salary and about a $25 million cap hit. That's elite-level money. That's what you pay for a player who consistently performs at a high level. And right now, that's far from guaranteed with him. The report even says it clearly. There is a strong case to be made he should have been gone before the draft. That's not an overreaction. There's a legitimate argument that the logical move would have been to move on earlier. And the worst part? The contract structure doesn't make things easy. Unlike other deals, you can't just push money down the road with a major restructure like the Ravens did with Lamar Jackson. The options here are limited, and that puts Baltimore in a tough spot. And that's when you start to see why this situation is still unresolved. Because despite all of this, the cost, the performance questions, he's still there. Which brings us to the decision the team ultimately made. At the end of the day, and to me this is very clear, the Ravens made a conscious choice. They're not solving this right now. Instead of bringing in real competition or starting a transition, they've decided to keep Humphrey as a key piece, at least in the short term. You can see that in the report when it implies that without a veteran addition or a young player ready to step up, Humphrey's place on the depth chart looks relatively secure. So regardless of the criticism, he still has a firm spot in the rotation, but that doesn't mean everything is fine. Not even close. There's an expectation that something has to change, especially his role in the defense. The analysis even suggests the Ravens need to limit his usage, which already tells you how they're starting to view his impact. To me, Baltimore is buying time. They're avoiding a tough decision for now, keeping the player, but making it clear that something will have to give, whether it's his salary, his role, or eventually his place on the roster. Marlon Humphrey's situation right now is way more complicated than it looks at first glance. This isn't just about what he's done for the team. It's about what he can still deliver on the field. The Ravens clearly chose to hold off on making a big move, but that doesn't erase the warning signs. Inconsistent performance, a heavy contract, and no real long-term solution in place. To me, it feels like Baltimore is walking a very thin line. They're keeping him, trying to adjust his role, and buying time before making a bigger decision. But that kind of approach comes with a cost, and if his level of play doesn't improve, this conversation is only going to get louder as the season goes on. Now I want to hear from you. Do you still trust Marlon Humphrey as a key piece of this defense? Or do you think the Ravens should have already moved in a different direction? Let me know in the comments because this debate is far from over. And if you're a true Ravens fan and love keeping up with everything happening around the team, don't leave this video without sharing it with a friend who's just as passionate. They're definitely going to enjoy this. See those videos on your screen right now? I picked the first one especially for you, and the other is recommended by YouTube. Go check them out and I'll see you in the next video.